Alrighty guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at this week's shrine. Now first and foremost, I'm going to tell you this week's shrine isn't incredibly great, but let's go into a little bit of detail why. Now this first perk is called Diversion. What does Diversion actually do? You're going to have, it's a survivor perk, and you're going to have to be within the killer's heartbeat, but not in chase with the killer. Once you're in chase, the perk will stop working, okay? So basically this allows you, once you're in the heartbeat of the killer, to build up the timer required for Diversion. As you can see, the timer is 40 seconds. Once this timer hits full, and you haven't been in chase with the killer, you'll have access to a pebble. The pebble can be used to distract the killer. That being said, it's going to give the killer scratch marks and a notification in a different direction or wherever the pebble is placed. So keeping that in mind, you can use that to kind of counter a killer, but a killer will generally only fall for it once because the scratch marks generally don't line up. Moving on to the next perk. This perk is called Haunted Ground, or Hex Haunted Ground. What does it actually do? Basically, it allows 2 dull totems to become lit. It does not increase how many totems spawn in a trial. There are still only 5 totems that spawn each trial, regardless of the map. Now, this being said, 2 additional totems will be glowing or lit totems. They'll have the fire around them. When one of them is cleansed, Haunted Ground will activate. Now, if you have your own separate perk like Hex Ruin and Hex Haunted Ground, if they break Hex Ruin, Haunted Ground will not activate. They have to break one of the 2 allocated and designed Haunted Ground totems in order for the perk to work. When a totem is broken, all survivors, not just the person who broke it, receive the exposure status for 40, 50, and 60 seconds, respectively at Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Now, while you're under the status effect of exposure, that means you're going to get O down in 1 hit from an auto attack. It will not work on hit effects, such as a Demogorgon or a Pig's Ambush. It'll only work off the basic auto attack, so keep that in mind. I don't think it's a great perk anymore. I feel that you get much more value out of running possibly a regression perk or a perk that'll tell you where survivors are, like Discordance. Having the ability to one-hit down people can be very beneficial, but at the same time, I would rather, if I had to choose something like consistency like Sloppy Butcher, because it'll give me consistency throughout the entire trial, rather than only for 60 seconds at one point in the game. Moving on to the next perk. This perk is called Thrilling Tremor. Now, I think Thrilling Tremor is an S+ perk on the Doctor. I say it is the Doctor's best in-slot perk, and I'll explain to you why in a moment. What does Thrilling Tremor do? Thrilling Tremor is basically going to be able to tell you what generators survivors aren't working on when you down a survivor and pick them up. So if I just downed Jeff and I picked up Jeff and put him on my shoulder, all generators that don't have a survivor on them will be glowing white. Therefore, any generator not glowing white, I know there is a survivor on it. If I can see 3 generators not glowing white, I know they're working on 3 separate generators. So it's actually a very beneficial perk. It works well with Ruin. People do substitute it out rather than Barbecue and Chili. The only negative is it has a 100-second cooldown, an 80-second cooldown, and a 60-second cooldown at Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. I actually think it is a very good perk. I generally tend to run it on a killer that is slower and struggles to get across the board, such as somebody like a Huntress, somebody like Ghostface, somebody who doesn't have the ability to teleport or move throughout the trial quickly, even a Clown, for example. Now, the reason I said it's a best in slot perk for the Doctor, because if you just down somebody and you know people are working on a generator, if you use Static Blast animation locks survivors for 2.5 seconds. If you use Static Blast and then pick the guy up on the ground, anyone within your heartbeat, therefore by default 32 meters, will get off their generator because there'll be an animation lock, and then the generator will seal for the next 16 seconds. Now, that being said, a sealed generator does not have regression. Even if you have Ruin, regressing normally at 0.6% per second, having a generator sealed stops any form of regression. But I still do put it as one of the best in slot, if not the best in slot perk on the Doctor. Now, the next perk is called Windows of Opportunity. This is a Kate Denson teachable. Now, I don't think it's a bad perk if you're trying to learn the game and learn window placement and pallet placement. It basically allows you to see the auras of windows and pallets within 20 meters. However, when you use one of these, it'll go on cooldown for a period of time. So keeping in mind, it'll allow you to try and memorize the layouts of the maps. Even though the maps do change slightly, generally you can look at a certain tile on the map and understand where the pallet will be based on where the window is, or vice versa, so you can play around that kind of experience. Anyways, guys, that's going to be all for this week's shrine. If you had the shards, I would recommend maybe saving them and possibly getting Thrilling Tremor. It is a great teachable that is unlocked from Ghostface. Otherwise, I would probably not look at unlocking anything else. Once again, guys, GG's well played. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I do education, informative, DVD killer, and survivor content over at Twitch if you guys want to tune into the live stream. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the fog in the next video.